but it seems to be working. It just, for some reason, it says YouTube is now online. Had to delete it and remake everything. So let's see what we got here. Restart everything YouTube. Okay, let's see what we got on our website. loamicc.com/live. Yeah, it wasn't the internet. This is technical glitches on sort of my end here. I'm not 100% certain, which it stinks because I was hoping to have a bunch of links to important stuff in the YouTube description, but I didn't have time to set that up when I deleted everything and wiped everything. But if you're watching Facebook, all the comments are there. All right, we are live on our website, finally, I believe. So that's what it looks like. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just pretend that everything is working great this morning. Oh, my goodness gracious. Hey, Josh Schneider. Nice to see you. I'm guessing everyone can hear me since Brittany responded about my login info stuff. That's good. Says she can't see it, which is exactly what somebody would say if they could see it. And we're going to use it for nefarious purposes. So, hey, again, so glad you guys are here and you can see me this morning. Glad we got some of the technical glitches sorted out, I hope. My name is Anthony Bliss. Welcome to Loami CC Church Online. I'm one of the pastors here at the church. If it is your first time joining us, I just want to welcome you. Or if you're newer, maybe it's not your first time, but you've watched a few weeks, just welcome to our time this morning. Welcome to our church family. So glad that you've chosen to join us this morning. I do want to say that we don't want this experience to be like watching the movies. That's one of the downsides of being an online-only church for the time being, is that it can very much just be you watch and turn it off and carry on with your life. But we want to be able to engage with you and give you the option to engage with our church and our church family. We want to give you a place to connect, to be known, and to know others. A place where if you have questions about Jesus or the Bible or anything whatsoever about faith or belief, we want to give you places to ask those questions. And so, to help you make that connection, if you're newer, I would encourage you to click below. If you are watching on Facebook, there's a link in the description called Connect Card. If you're on our website, loamicc.com/live, there's a button right below here that just says Connect Card. You click that, you fill out that form, and that just kind of puts us in contact with each other. That says, I'm new here, I'm ready to start some spiritual journey. I'm ready to start my walk of faith. And we'll help you answer any questions you may have and work this out at your speed. If you are a regular Loami CC person, you don't need to fill out the Connect card. That's kind of what we've done in our services, but for the online stuff, you don't need to do that. So if you're regular, you can skip the Connect card thing, but if you're newer, go ahead, click that button or one of the buttons or the link in the description, and you can fill out that very short form. It will not take but more than a couple seconds. Again, for those of you that are joining us who are regular folks, or if you're newer, I just want to take a second and encourage you to take advantage of the fact that it has never, ever been easier to invite someone to church with you. It has never in the history of the church been easier to invite someone to join you for church this morning. That's one of the benefits of church online, is that you can send a few clicks, get a few things going. On our website, we've got a couple buttons in a green bar below the video. You can do an email or a text. If you're on your phone, it's super easy. You just click either one. It'll open up your text or your email. If you're on Facebook, you can hit the share button. On YouTube, there's a little curvy arrow below the video. You can click that and share it to people through text or email or however you want to do that. If you're on Facebook, you can even start this really cool thing they have on Facebook called a watch party. And it kind of tells all your friends that you're watching church online, and they can join in and watch with you, and you can comment in your own little chat section. So there's a ton of ways to invite someone to join with you, and we are gearing up for Easter next week, and what a great time to invite someone to join and hear about the love and the mercy and the amazing grace of Jesus. So yeah, take a second, invite somebody. If you are a kid, if you got kids in the room, hey kids, if you're watching, I need your help if you're a kid, okay? First off, what I need you to do is I need you to draw me a picture, like right now, as you're doing, like right now, I need you to draw me a picture of your favorite cartoon character, but I don't want you to draw it normal. I want you to change something. I want your imagination to run wild and change something about this cartoon character that you really enjoy. Like for instance, you could go small and draw Pikachu, but like make him blue. You could draw Chase the police pup from Paw Patrol, but instead of making him the police pup, you could make him the fire pup. Okay, whatever you want to do. You could draw Batman in a pink costume. Whatever your heart desires. Use your imagination and change the cartoon character that you love in some way, shape, or form. And I want you to then, when you're done, have your parents take a picture and post it in the comments below or the chat below before the end of the sermon, before the end of the message. So I need your help. That's going to play in after the message. So draw your favorite cartoon character, but in a way that's different. Draw something different. And again, let your imagination run wild with that. I would encourage you to join in, though, in the chats below. I'd mentioned that. If you're on our website, all you need to do is pick a nickname. You could pick your first name and last initial, or just first name, last name, whatever you want to do, whatever you're comfortable with. And join in. Let us know you're here. Say hi, say hello, send a waving emoji, or give us a thumbs up, and let us know who's watching with you. My suspicion. No, that's not right. My suspicion is that we have more people watching online now than we have had in our services, and one way to help us figure that out is by letting us know who's watching with you this morning, because it might say 50 people are tuning in on Facebook Live, but that could easily be 150, 180 people, depending on how many people are sitting in your living room watching with you this morning. Now, the reason that we're doing this online stuff is because our world has entered this really scary time that's incredibly unprecedented for us that are alive. This happened, what they say, back in like the 1910s somewhere. But for those of us who are watching, we've never experienced anything like this in our lifetime, and it can be really scary. And it seems to be getting scarier by the day. The news reports on the number of people that are getting sick and the number of deaths from this. It's really frightening. The restrictions on what we can do are getting tighter as the coronavirus infections seem to start peaking. And I would really encourage you to take all necessary precautions. Stay home if you can. Wear masks when you go out, especially if you are someone who's at a higher risk for this disease taking a serious toll on you. But we need to be wise in how we respond, of course, okay? But as frightening as this stuff can be, as the situation can be, and as the news can be, I want to assure you that we don't need to be overcome by fear. Because of our faith in Christ, we have the ability to be joyful and see purpose in our lives and in what we do, even in these dark seasons. You see, followers of Jesus have hope that whether this life is good or whether this life is painful and fearful, we can be hopeful. We can look on the bright side. We can maybe not avoid the pain and avoid the heartache, but we don't have to be overcome by it. We don't have to get to a place where we're absolutely, utterly hopeless. And so one thing we're going to do starting this week is we're going to try to start groups. We're going to try to start an online Bible study. And depending on how many people join in on that, we might have to break up into smaller groups. And we're going to do that through Zoom. That's what we're going to try first anyway. So you can download Zoom on your phone, on your whether iOS, iPhone, or Android device. There's a Zoom app for computers, for desktops, whatever. And I'll send out the links to that later this week. But what I need you to do, if you want to be a part of that group, is to join the group. So I have a small form. If you're on our website, it says Join Wednesday Evening Bible Study. You click that, fill out the form. That'll let me know that you want to be a part of the Bible study, and I'll send you the link to the Zoom call when the time comes. If you're on Facebook, there's a link in the description to join the Wednesday night. Same form, fill that out. And then I'll let you know that we're going to be a part of this Wednesday night Bible study. And what we're going to do in this Bible study is we're going to go through the book of Philippians over the coming weeks, because Philippians is a book where the Apostle Paul, who wrote it, was in jail. And he doesn't know if he's going to go off to be executed or if he's going to be set free. He really has no idea what comes next for him. And instead of being hopeless of like, I could be killed here, instead of freaking out and being overcome by the fear of that, he's trying to make the most of every second he has, and he's filled with joy knowing that regardless of what happens, Christ is with him. Christ is for him. Let me read a few verses, and if you're a Christian, you've probably heard these verses before, but I want you to pay attention to this little passage in Philippians, to how Paul, he acts hopeful, like he's going to get out of prison, but he isn't fearful if it doesn't go his way. Philippians chapter 1, verse 18 says, "Yes, and I will rejoice," said the guy who's in jail, right? "For I know that through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, this will turn out for my deliverance, as it is my eager expectation and hope that I will not be at all ashamed, but with full courage, now as always, Christ will be honored in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain." He's saying, if I get out of here, I keep serving and doing work for Jesus, telling more people about Jesus. I keep living a life of purpose and meaning. If this doesn't turn out, well, I get to go be with Jesus, and that's a win for me too. And so Paul has no fear of this life doing its absolute worst to him. So I would love for you to sign up for this Bible study as we go through it. I think it's going to be really encouraging for all of us. And again, there's a button below the video if you're on our website, loamicc.com/live, or a link in the description on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, I meant for all these links to be in the description, but because of the technical difficulties, they're not there. So sorry, everybody. I apologize for that, but you can find them on our website. Now, I do want to talk a moment about tithes and offerings. There are a lot of churches right now that are really struggling as giving has dropped off, understandably, as a lot of people are out of work or there's just economic uncertainty and all of that. I've been seeing a lot of articles online trying to help explaining how churches can be a part of the government assistance, to keep paychecks rolling and to keep their staff on the payroll through all this and stuff. And I just want to say, man, all of you have continued to be so generous. We actually had a surplus last month. Even with everything that's been going on, we had a surplus. And that speaks volumes to the faithfulness of our church. It speaks volumes to the fact that so many of you have truly surrendered every aspect of your lives to Jesus, and you aren't going to let that faithfulness and that dedication to Christ be deterred. And so if you want to give today, give your offerings today or in the coming days or weeks, there's two ways to do that. Two ways to give online. Two ways to give, excuse me. One is to give online, loamicc.com. There is, on any page of our website, you should see that little gray circle at the bottom right side. You click that, it'll open the giving form. If you're watching live right now, below the video, there's a green button that just says give online. Or as always, if you want to give through a check, you can mail that to the church. Our address is right there. It's a P.O. box. Because Loami, not everybody can get mail delivered to them, so we're a P.O. box in Loami. So don't think this is some scam. We're not trying to rip anybody off. We actually process those checks, and they go right into our offering, and they go to carry on the ministry that we're doing here as a church. And as you give, since this is, I believe giving is an act of worship, I want you to add another spiritual exercise in with your offering. Whether you're filling out the form or whether you're writing a check, I want you to take a moment and pray for people in our church family who maybe are experiencing financial hardship. If you're not and you're still able to give, that's great. But take a moment to pray for people who might be out of work right now, who might not know when the next paycheck's going to come. And if that's you, if you are out of work right now, don't take this as a pressure treatment to give. Okay, that's not what the goal of this is. That's not the intent here. In fact, I want to offer to you, if you need assistance, if you feel like you're a little scared of what's going to come, and if you want to keep your lights on and keep water in your house and food on the table and the heat or the air conditioning, depending on the day of Loami of an Illinois spring, right? Your church family is here for you. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you need assistance at all in this time, whether that's food, paying bills, whatever it might be. We want to be here for you. So please don't miss that as well. Now, in just a moment, we are going to be finishing up a series with the final message of As It Is in Heaven. That's been our sermon series, and we're kind of looking at the idea that Jesus taught his disciples to pray, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your will be done on earth. Your kingdom come, Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That we should be eager for this life to look like that life, for this place to look like that place, for our physical earthly lives to start resembling the spiritual reality of where God is in heaven. And I do want to let you know that after the sermon, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be praying together as a family, as a church family. Yeah, we can't be together, but this is live. When I pray and you pray, we're still praying together. The separation is no boundary for God in hearing our prayers and seeing them as lifted up together in the church family, as a church family, excuse me. And so if you have a prayer request that you would like us to pray for, you can fill that form out on our website, loamicc.com/live. All the way at the bottom of the page, there's a prayer request form. Or if you're on Facebook, there's a link in the description to submit a prayer request. It'll take you to that very same form, and you can fill that out so that we will be able, again, to pray together and still have this somewhat relational communion as we do this. And speaking of communion, after the sermon, we will be taking part in the Lord's Supper together, and so you're going to want to go ahead and get your communion supplies together before then. Now, let's go ahead. Again, kids, keep submitting keep working on your cartoon drawings. Please submit them in the thing below, or else it's not going to work after the sermon. So I really do need your help. And so let's go ahead and move into the sermon. Who's the most famous person that you've ever met? Go ahead and write it in the comments of the chat to let me know who is the most famous person that you've ever met. I'm really curious to see if any of you have met somebody that's like top tier famous. And I don't mean like your best friends and you got their number in your phone or anything like that. I just mean like, somebody that you met, you shook hands, you exchanged some pleasantries, something like that. I tried to think of a celebrity that I've met, and I couldn't think of any celebrities that I've ever met. I've met people that were like famous in church circles, like in minister circles. But like if I came, on some Sunday and told you that I met Carrie Newhoff or Reggie Joyner, no one in the room is going to be like, "Whoa, Anthony, I'm blown away by that." Because they're not famous like we tend to think of actual celebrities. Now, though have never really met anybody that was famous, my college roommate is a pro at this. He has literally made it one of his hobbies, one of his life's missions, to meet people who are famous. And I remember in college, I think he had met Keanu Reeves, and he had met Bill Murray and some of the cast of Happy Days and things like that. And everyone's like, "Whoa, you've met all these celebrities!" And now he's moved to Hawaii. He lives in Hawaii, which is apparently a great place to meet celebrities. They're there. He meets them all the time. And so in the last couple years, he met Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard when they were filming Jurassic World. This past year, actually, I think just a few months ago, he met Taika Waititi, who directed the most recent Thor movie, and I think he directed the movie Jojo Rabbit last year. So he's kind of getting to be a bigger name in Hollywood. But the celebrity that he has spent the most time with, weirdly enough, is Adam Sandler. He's bumped into him a few times, but the weirdest account came when my former roommate's parents had flown to Hawaii. They're from Tuscola, all right? So they're from here, and they'd flown out to Hawaii to spend some time with their son, and they ended up staying at the hotel that Adam Sandler and his family were staying at. And so one Saturday, I'm sitting in my house minding my own business, and my college roommate sent me this video of his mom in the pool at their hotel batting a beach ball around with Adam Sandler and his kids. And I'm just thinking, man, your life is so much different than mine. Like that, you had a way different Saturday than what I had. And so, yeah, I'm not really a person who's seen a lot of celebrities. He is, maybe you have. But one thing that's interesting for many of us who are watching this today is that we are really interested in the person who was the most famous person who has ever lived in the history of humankind, which was Jesus. And, when it comes to celebrities, one thing that we get all wrapped up in is getting their picture, whether we're in it or not. Sometimes you can't get in a picture with them and take that selfie. Sometimes you just, get a picture of a band on stage and you were kind of close and it was exciting, right? Well, the problem with that when it comes to Jesus is there weren't cameras 2,000 years ago. And as far as we know, Jesus never sat down to be painted or to have someone make a sculpture of his face. And if he did, it definitely hasn't survived to the modern era. And so what painters and sculptors have had to do over the centuries is they've just kind of make Jesus look however they think he might have looked. And one of the most famous versions, the most famous renderings in the last 100 years or so, came from a guy named Werner Salman. And Werner Salman, he painted this painting called The Head of Christ. Okay, here it is, The Head of Christ. And it was commissioned right here in Illinois, up in Chicago, to be painted. And this picture is the most famous rendering of Jesus in our modern world. It has been replicated over 500 million times. All right? There are large versions that have been made to hang in churches. There are small, little wallet-sized photos that have been made for evangelistic purposes. In fact, right after this was actually made, there were Christian organizations handing these out to soldiers who were being shipped off in World War II, so that they would literally have this picture of Jesus to take with them into war. And this painting right here has shaped how billions of people picture Jesus. The way that many of us today picture Jesus is based on this picture, has been influenced by this picture. In fact, some of you have this picture hanging in your house right now. And so for a lot of us, if we think Jesus, when someone mentions Jesus, what we picture is a white guy with dark, perfectly conditioned hair that has just the kind of perfect no-fuss waves that you wish your hair had. We see a guy who has a beard that is perfectly groomed, okay? We got none of this like beard hair up here. We've got none of that nasty neck beard. Everything is perfectly groomed. And he's got these blue eyes that are warm and kind. And for a lot of us, we've lived our whole lives, and when we picture Jesus, this is what we think of. We think Werner Salman's picture of Jesus. And, what's interesting to me is that I don't know how old I was. I think I was maybe in late high school or college by the time I was first introduced to the idea that Jesus wasn't a white guy. For someone who grew up in Illinois and has lived pretty much in areas where the population is predominantly white, right? It never stands out to me when I went to the grocery stores or when I saw people out at school. It never jumped out at me that everyone just kind of looked like me. And so when I saw this picture of Jesus, it never struck me as weird that he looked like me. And so when someone finally mentioned that Jesus probably wasn't white, I was like, well, you know what? Wow, I never thought of it before, but I've seen pictures of people from the Middle East and they sure aren't white. And a few years ago, to kind of help clear things up a little bit, some archaeologists took some bones that they found in Palestine that were dated to the 1st century of a man, and they used computer modeling and 3D rendering, to kind of bring this guy back to life, so to speak, to create a likeness of, put together an image of what this guy probably looked like. And you might have saw this. It was probably 15 or 20 years ago now. But the headlines were all saying, "The real face of Jesus," or "Is this what Jesus actually looked like?" Now, to be clear, this is not a picture of Jesus, the one I'm about to show you. It's simply a picture of a guy from around the same time that Jesus lived and from the same part of the world in which Jesus lived. So it's not Jesus, but it does give us a clearer picture of some of the same characteristics that would have defined how Jesus looked. Now, those pictures are drastically different. They are so very different. The picture on the right looks very different from the Jesus that I've always had in my head growing up. And yet it's probably more accurate to what Jesus actually looked like. So how did we make that leap? How did we get from 1st century Middle Eastern Jewish man to all-American Jesus? How did that happen? Well, I think the explanation is actually pretty easy. If you go and you look at the beginning of the Bible, we see that it says that God created humankind in his image, meaning that God created the universe and he wanted to insert into the universe something that would represent his strength and his love and his creativity, his goodness to the world. And so when you hear Christians talk about how God made mankind in his image, What that means is that humans were created to be a representation of who God is in the world. The problem is, rather than spending our time reflecting who God is, we get a little too big for our britches. We start to get a little too prideful and a little too full of ourselves. We start to think about how awesome we are, how smart we are, how right we are. And what happens is we tend to start reflecting our likeness back onto God. And so even though we are made in God's image, we actually end up trying to remake God in our image. We are made in God's image, but what we try to do most of the time is remake God in our image. And if you really ever pay attention to people as they describe God or Jesus, they end up pretty much describing themselves, or at least what they aspire to be. Most people's view of Jesus is simply a better version of themselves. We tend to want a Jesus who thinks the way we do, votes the way we do, lives the way we do. We want a Jesus who affirms our lifestyle, a Jesus who would approve of our decisions and the way that we choose to live our life. That's the kind of Jesus we want. And we're all kind of trying to remake Jesus in our image. This is how you end up with people from both sides of the political aisle quoting scripture, quoting Jesus, and acting like if Jesus were alive today, he'd vote for them. This is how we ended up with 1,000,001 denominations, from ultra-conservative to ultra-liberal, and both say, we worship Jesus. And everyone kind of thinks, all the Christians from conservative to liberal and everyone on the spectrum in between, we kind of think if Jesus were alive today, well, he'd surely come to my church because he'd agree with me and everything I think and everything I believe. And so no matter where you go, what you end up doing is we kind of end up making a Jesus who agrees with us, who supports our way of doing things and our way of living. In many ways, that's pretty much what our faith has become about, transforming our idea of Jesus to look like our world and to look like us, rather than trying to transform our world and ourselves to look like Jesus. Now, I want to take us briefly to a story, and it's the story of Palm Sunday. And it's incredibly appropriate because today's Palm Sunday. If you haven't grown up in church and you don't have a lot of church background, you might not know what Palm Sunday is, but I'll explain that as we go through the passage. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 21. If you have a Bible with you, the verses will show up on the screen here. But we see a story of people who were trying to remake Jesus in their image. And this Palm Sunday story, it marks the beginning of the last week of Jesus' life. It marks the last time he would enter Jerusalem before he would be arrested, beaten, and murdered to pay the price for my sin and your sin. And this story is probably one of the few times where we see Jesus being treated the way he actually deserved to be treated. So let's go ahead, Matthew chapter 21. We'll start in the first verse, okay? It says, now, when they had drew near to Jerusalem and came to Bethphage, to the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, go into the village in front of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, the Lord needs them, and he will send them at once. I always thought that was kind of weird. Jesus just kind of sends these 2 guys to hijack someone's donkey and says, if anybody catches you doing it, just give them this vague thing saying the Lord needs you. But it works. That's what they do. And it says, this took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet. Now pay attention to this. We're going to come back to this in just a second. Pay attention to this next little bit. This bit that was spoken by the prophet, saying, say to the daughter of Zion, or say to Israel. That's what this prophecy means. Say to Israel, behold, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden. The disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. And most of the crowd spread their cloaks on the road. Okay, so now there's a crowd. It went from being Jesus followers to a crowd of people. They knew something and they recognized something. They knew that this was Jesus who'd been causing a stir over Israel the last 3 years, healing people and performing miracles. And now he's coming into Jerusalem riding on a donkey, and it's very unusual and it's very weird, but they are extremely excited about it, and they are freaking out on Jesus is riding this donkey into town. And it says they spread their cloaks on the road, or some, it says others cut branches of palm leaves, Palm Sunday, okay, put palm branches from the trees and spread them on the road. And the crowds that went before him and that followed him were shouting, Hosanna, which means save us. Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred, saying, Who is this? And the crowd said, This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee. And so Jesus gets this grand king's welcome. These people are so excited that he's here. And yet, in less than a week, many of the same people that are in this crowd cheering him, shouting, Save us, Jesus. Many of these same people are going to be yelling, Crucify him. In the span of a few short days, many of these same people who are rolling out this red carpet by covering the road with palm leaves as Jesus rides a donkey into Jerusalem, these same people are going to stop seeing him as a king and start seeing him as a criminal. How does that happen? How does this switch happen so quickly to cheering for him, celebrating him, pleading for his help, to wanting him to be murdered? And I think the answer is pretty simple to find, but it requires a little bit of a history lesson. I know you're probably excited about that, right? But it'll be real quick, and it'll help that prophecy make more sense, okay? Back in the Old Testament, very early on in the Old Testament, God promised to raise up a nation of people, and this nation would start to fulfill the purpose that God made for humanity, okay? That this nation that God raises up would be his representatives in the world of his wisdom and his power and his love, right? And this nation would be Israel. And the rest of the story of the Old Testament is the story of Israel. And it starts off with God fulfilling his promise to them by raising them up to be a powerful nation. And then he turns them into a powerful kingdom. They get kings, and they get great kings like David and Solomon, and Israel is powerful, and it's wealthy, and it's this major world player. But then the Israelites turn away from God, and God punishes them. And he starts to take away all this stuff that he had given them. He takes away their power. He takes away their might. He takes away their independence. He takes away the thrones so that they are no longer a kingdom. And so for hundreds and hundreds of years, Israel went from being this major world power to being this small, unimportant, backwater territory that served much more powerful nations. And as this is going on, where the people of Israel are feeling like their glory days are behind them, their best days are behind them, God makes a promise to Israel through the prophet Zechariah. And he says, one day, I'm going to send to you a king, and he's going to ride into town on a donkey, and he is going to free and bring this great, and he's going to bring in the kingdom, and he's going to do these great things. And so the people are waiting for this king to show up, to defeat the nations, to show off, to throw off the chains of oppression that have been wrapped on them for hundreds of years. And they are expecting Jesus, or this king that they've waited for, to come and bring Israel back to being a powerful and important player on the world's scene. And the promise was that this king would then sit on the throne forever and ever. Now, by the time the first century rolls around, the major world player that Israel was kind of underneath was Rome. And Rome was oppressive, and Rome and Israel did not have a good relationship. And as the people of Israel are unhappy about their lot in life, they're remembering this promise because they knew the scriptures. They're remembering this promise that God made to them. One day I'm going to send a guy to be king again over you, and he's going to ride in a very humble fashion, but he's going to be a mighty king. And so when these people see this man that they've been hearing about for 3 years, this man who has healed people and raised people from the dead, and he's performed, miracle after miracle, and all of a sudden he's riding into Jerusalem on a donkey, they're blown away. They're thinking, this is the day. It's him. It's finally happening. This is our guy. I mean, they're probably weeping with joy, thinking this long wait is over. And they're screaming to him, save us, save us. And what they mean by that is liberate us, free us, throw off the chains of Rome's oppression. Let us be powerful and free again. Be our king and make us mighty again. And they're cheering for Jesus, not because he was bringing in God's kingdom. No, they're cheering because they thought that he was going to reestablish their kingdom. And you see, what they had begun to do was they were remaking Jesus in their image. Jesus came to reveal to them who God was, and yet all they could see was who they wanted God to be, who they wanted the Savior to be. And Jesus was great at the beginning of the week because they thought he was the king they wanted, the king they expected, the king that they envisioned, the king who was committed to bringing about their hopes, fulfilling their hopes, making their dreams a reality. He was going to be the king that would bring about the future that they pictured. He would bring about their political aspirations and make them an independent, powerful kingdom once again. But the second Jesus stopped fulfilling that role, the second it was obvious that Jesus would not be remade in their image, they were quick to turn on him. And if you've ever read any of the Gospels, the 4 biographies of Jesus that start the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, if you've ever read those and you've watched how Jesus interacted with the religious people, because the religious people were always mad at him because he didn't meet their expectations of how a prophet should act, how God should act, or any of that stuff, right? And it becomes very obvious in Jesus' interactions with people that he never came to meet our expectations of God. No, he came to reveal the true nature of God. He came to shatter our expectations and show us the reality of our Maker, who the God of the universe truly was. And anytime Jesus refused to line up with somebody else's idea of who he should have been, he ended up as their enemy, and they sought to kill him. They were very quick to turn on him. Now, how does that work with us? What does that mean to us? Well, maybe we don't commit actual murder like this crowd offering Jesus up to be killed. We don't commit actual murder, right? But we are very quick to get rid of any real idea of Jesus and form our own idea of who Jesus should be. An idea of Jesus, a picture of Jesus that's a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more easy to swallow. And it's a lot easier for us as Christians to pray prayers that are things like, hey, God, your will be done. It's a lot easier for us to pray, your will be done, when we think that God's will actually lines up with my will. When we think that God's plan isn't going to mess up my plan. When we're sure that his mighty power is simply going to be used to bring about my purpose, to serve my desires. And so what we end up with are a lot of us who have this picture of Jesus in our minds, who looks nothing like the real Jesus. We have this picture of Jesus that is distorted, that is not accurate, the Jesus who doesn't love the way that God loves, who isn't about the things and for the things and concerned about the things that God is concerned about. We have a picture of Jesus that is really just a mirror. We've remade Jesus in our image. And I think if you're honest, you'd have to admit that that's true of you. And so the question I want to pose to you is this: how have you remade Jesus in your image? And I understand that's a hard question to answer. I understand that most of you are probably sitting there going, oh, I'm not sure. Okay, well, I want to help you figure that out this week. I want to help you start to understand and break down the idea that you have of Jesus, tear that apart and get rid of it, and actually start receiving and seeing the real Jesus. And believe it or not, we live in a great time for that because of social media. It is really easy to look online and see how people have kind of remade Jesus in their image. Mainly because we like to post things when we're emotional, things when we're angry or upset, or some big joyful moment happens and we write something really quick, or when we're scared. When these big emotions, we post these things on social media about God and our relationship with Him and our thoughts about Jesus, and those end up revealing a lot more maybe than we would like for them to. But it's very easy to look on social media and see that some of you have molded your idea of Jesus to support your brand of politics, right? To some of you, you're convinced that Jesus is a Democrat, and He's focused on serving and raising up people who are oppressed, and you're confident that He hates all those legalistic red state people. And to others of you, you are 100% certain that Jesus is a Republican, and His focus is on holiness and righteousness, and He hates all those lawless, corrupt blue state people. Some of you, Jesus is a libertarian, and He's here to, stick it to the man, and He's here to, never let the government tell Him what to do, and things like that. That's why I think some pastors right now are, we're going to have church no matter what the government says, even if I go to jail and they feel like they're serving some higher agenda. I honestly think it's because they've remade Jesus in their image. They think Jesus was going to, they picture Jesus as riding up to the White House and telling everybody off or something like that. Some of you can tell that your picture of Jesus has been shaped by your happiness or your desire for happiness. And you've made a Jesus that is all about and is incredibly concerned with your happiness. All throughout this coronavirus ordeal, ever since it started, I started seeing these posts and prayers that are like, in Jesus' name, there's this coronavirus isn't going to get me, or it's not going to come to my house. And there's other ways that it's been said, but it basically kind of gives across this idea that if I have enough faith, if I just believe hard enough, I'm not going to get sick. No one in my family is going to get sick. That if I say the right prayers or I have enough faith, then Jesus is even going to bless me and protect me, not just physically, but He's going to protect me from any economic fallout that's going to happen through all the people being out of work and our economy taking this hit. And so if I can just have enough faith, then Jesus is going to make sure everything in my life stays going good. If I just have enough faith, then Jesus is going to protect me so that my life is untouched by sadness or grief, and that I'm only going to experience happiness and rainbows and sunshine and happy days with plenty of toilet paper. And the tragedy, though, is that when you remake Jesus in your own image, you miss Jesus. You miss the greatest representation of God, the Creator, your Maker, that you will ever get in this life. And it's a shame because God had so much love for us that He stepped out of heaven and into our world so that we could see Him, so that people could touch Him and experience firsthand His love. And these people were so blown away by Jesus and what He did and the fact that He died and rose again by the power of God. These people were so blown away by Him that they wrote His story down, and we have it preserved throughout the centuries as what we call the New Testament. And we have this great picture of the real Jesus right in front of us. And we've traded that off to have a Jesus that serves our agenda because we're so prideful or maybe just so insecure that we can't imagine that God would disagree with us, or we need God to agree with us because it makes us feel better about ourselves. And so here's the challenge I want to give you this week to help you start figuring out how you have remade God in your image, how you have remade Jesus in your image. I want you to take this week and read the book of John. John is one of those Gospels, one of those three Jesus biographies that we have at the beginning of the New Testament. It's 21 chapters long, So if you read 3 a day, that's 7 days. If you start today, you'll be done on Saturday, which is a great way to spend the week leading up to Easter, by the way. Um, but I want you to read this book, and you have to read it, I guess. If you're not a reader, or if maybe you're spending a ton of time, maybe you're working more this week because you're essential, you're a healthcare worker or something like that. Maybe you can listen to this in your car on the way to work and the way home. And there's great free ways to get the audio versions of the Bible. If you want to download the YouVersion Bible app, it's free. But you can click on like the NIV or the ESV, which is what I preach from and what our Pew Bibles are, and you can listen to the Bible being read to you. So that's another way you can work through John. But if you do 3 chapters a day, you'll be done this week. And as you read John, what I want you to do is I want you to pay close attention to Jesus, and I want you to pay close attention to your idea of Jesus. And I want you to pay attention to what Jesus says, to the kind of people that he's drawn to the kind of people that he calls out, the kind of people that he gets angry with. I want you to look at the things that Jesus is drawn to and the things that he's, the people that he, and the situations he seems to try to get away from. And I want you to hold that up, that picture of Jesus, the real Jesus, I want you to hold that up next to your picture of Jesus. And where I really want you to key in on your picture of Jesus and hone in is on the places where you really feel confident that you've got it right. Like the places where you really feel like you and Jesus are lined up, okay? Like if you're convinced that Jesus is a part of your political party, or if he lived today, he would be a member of your political party, I want you to pay attention to that aspect of Jesus' life. And I want you to look for the political party bumper sticker on the back of the donkey that Jesus rides into Jerusalem. Look for it, because you won't find it. But I want you to experience this week the real Jesus. And I want to have any false picture, distorted picture of Jesus, the image of Jesus that you've built up in your brain, I want that to be destroyed and torn down so that you can experience the God of the universe, the God who loves you, the God who came into this world to die for your sins. And I understand. You might still just be thinking, 3 chapters a day, that's a lot. Oh, man. And yes, for those of you, again, some of you are working more, I get it. But a lot of us, we got more time at home than we've had in a long time. We're stuck inside with not a lot to do, and we're watching extra Netflix while we're eating junk on the couch. Well, maybe it'd be good for us. I think it's great for us to watch a little bit less Netflix and to do something that is going to be nourishing to your soul in the best possible way. And it's only for a week, 7 short days. But it is time. It's well past time that those of us who called ourselves Christians started letting Jesus be Jesus. And it's time that we started being conformed to his likeness instead of trying to conform him to ours. All right. I've seen several kids posting pictures. I'm trying to get them to where I can put them up on the screen here for you. I accidentally sent the picture of Emily Kimmerer live for a few seconds earlier because Church Online's not, I didn't go to school for that. So we'll see how this goes. Just trying to figure it all out. All right, come on. Let's see if I can get a few more pictures. Yep, there's that. There they are. All right, just 1 second. I'm going to start shooting these up because they're cute. I want to see them. I'll be honest, I can't always tell who they are. I'm not, I don't know every cartoon character in the world. So we'll see here. All right, let's see. We've got okay, I'm going to start putting these up. Okay, oh, well, they're shooting all up at once. Let me see if I can do them one at a time. I'm missing a couple, though. Let me grab them. Okay. Ba-da-bum. I promise I'm going to get these in just a second. I think that's all the ones I've received. If I missed yours, I'm so sorry. It's not because of you. It's because of my technical issues. Okay, so first off, we have Emily Kinner with a beautiful picture of Barbie. Barbie's got dark hair. She either looks like she's a farm girl, which would make sense for Emily, or she's digging the 90s grunge look. Either way, love it both. There's Ken too. Ben Cantor drew the Loch Ness Monster with all kinds of cool stuff going on there. Love that, Ben. Okay. James drew the blue Pikachu. That's my guy right there. All right. Aubrey Manette. That looks like a very blue spotted unicorn, which is very pretty. Good job, Aubrey. All right. Then we also have Charlie, who drew an E, is what it looks like. I don't know who this one is, so you have to tell me who it is, Charlie. Have your mom or dad tell me. But I love it. And then Caroline Smith, Sky from